Hey there, Holly Hill, Elijah here. Today we're going to be looking at the next training video for the mission control system. So last week, if you remember, we talked about an overview of the entire mission control program. You can go back and rewatch that video if you need to, or if you haven't already. But it's the second Sunday of the month, which means this week we're looking at our equipping challenge, and we're going to be talking about ways that we can live out that challenge. So remember our vision. Our church's vision is to be where Christ lives, where people love, and where lives change. That's what we want to become. That's where we want to go. That's where we want to be. And our mission is how we plan to get there. So our vision, where we want to go, to be where Christ lives, people love, and lives change. That's what we want the Holly Hill congregation to be. But now our mission is to equip the saints, teach the word, and serve the world. These are the ways that we want to reach our vision. So let's talk about an explanation of these three. Just a reminder, equipping is experiencing how to live the Christian walk by sharing with other disciples. So the key word is there, sharing. It's not imparting knowledge or information. It is engaging in the lives of other disciples and sharing with them in order to grow together into the fullness of Christ, into being able to be better disciples by sharing our lives together. And then that is what we're going to be talking about today with our equipping challenge. It's all about sharing with fellow disciples to the point that it helps us to be better disciples. So the challenge for this month that we're going to be talking about this week in the training video, our equipping challenge, it's this: to grow in relationships and accountability by sharing one of your weaknesses with a fellow disciple and asking for prayers. So again, to grow in relationships and accountability by sharing one of your weaknesses with a fellow disciple and asking for prayers. So that's what our challenge is this month under the equipping category of our mission statement. Now remember, each month we have 3 missions, one for each of the 3 parts of our mission statement. Since this is the second week, we're talking about the first one. Next week, we're going to be talking about the second one. Then the week after that, we'll be talking about the third one. Right now, we're talking about the equipping challenge, which is to grow in relationships and accountability by sharing one of your weaknesses with a fellow disciple and asking for prayers. And one of the passages that we're pulling this from is from James chapter 5 and verse 16, which says, "Therefore confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person has great power in its working." So here we're told to confess our sins to one another and pray for one another. Now this is an important part of being a disciple and living within the church that we often overlook. So the rationale behind this challenge is to be equipped. And part of that equipping to do the work of ministry is to be more accountable and vulnerable with each other for the purpose of building relationships and supporting each other. So as we open up to each other in this way by asking for prayers and by confessing our weaknesses to each other, what we're doing is we're building relationships with each other for the purpose of supporting each other through the difficulties that are to come. So when things get difficult, we'll have those relationships with others within the congregation that can be more vulnerable. We have let down the walls of our heart, and we have allowed this other person or other people within the congregation to see our real, true self. And that's the only place that discipleship actually happens. That's the only way the church actually grows, is if we're able to tear down those walls. Just like Jericho, when they walked around the walls of the city, and on that last day when they walked around 7 times and blew the trumpets, the walls came tumbling down and they were able to go into the city. Those walls were fortified and they were not going anywhere, but through the power of God, those walls were able to come down and they were able to enter into the city. In the same way, through the power of God, we need to tear down the walls of our heart and allow each other to enter into our hearts and into those relationships where we often put up this guard. And so that's what this challenge is all about, is sort of opening up to each other and letting down those walls so that we can build those relationships, be more vulnerable with each other for the purpose of then helping each other through our weaknesses. So in our training, in our last Sunday night, we had our training mission and our mission training, where we sat down in the fellowship hall, we sat down in groups, and we discussed some of these things. And I want to look at the 3 questions that we discussed and give you a couple of ideas from each one. So the first question that we asked in that training, that mission training session, was what would be the benefit of both people? What would be the benefit to both people if only we could get over our fear and open up in this way? Get over our fear and open up in what way? Well, the way we're describing here of letting down our guard and confessing our weaknesses to each other and asking for prayers. What would be the benefit to both parties, both you and the person that you're reaching out to, if you could overcome your fear and somehow break down that wall? What would be the benefits? Well, there's a number of benefits. The first one is that we're going to build accountability with each other. Meaning, if there's somebody else in the congregation that knows what you're struggling with and what you're going through, and if they open up to you as well, especially then, you're building accountability with each other so that later on down the road they can say, how are you doing with this struggle? And you can say, well, I've been working on it, or well, I've not been working on it and I'm not doing so great. Then there's that accountability aspect of it, that you know somebody else knows what it is that you're struggling with and what it is that you're going through. And so it's going to build that accountability when you open up to that other person. Also, another benefit to both parties is that this is a contagious thing. As you are opening up to them, they are then more likely to open up to you as well. So it's going to benefit both of you in both directions. As you are vulnerable with them, it's going to make them more likely to open up to you as well. So it's contagious. Another benefit is that you'll find common ground with other people. As you confess your weaknesses, you're going to find the common ground of the things that you both struggle with, or the things that you are both have strengths in. You're going to find those common ground with that person that then you can use as a foundation to build a relationship going forward with them. You know, in these discussions, you're going to find things out about people that you never knew about them. And you say, wow, I didn't know that. And then in that moment, it breaks down those walls a little bit more as you're finding the common ground and as you are melting the ice and more likely to open up to that person. So that's a benefit to both parties, to you and to the other person. Another benefit is that it models the lifestyle of a disciple. So we've been talking in our Sunday morning Bible class a lot about the need to model what it looks like to be a disciple to the other members of the congregation, to model that, to live it out. And as you're doing this, you're modeling what a disciple should do to other people. You're setting a precedent, and you are setting an example. So they're going to see that, and it's going to build a culture of relationships within the congregation. So you're modeling the lifestyle of a disciple. You're setting an example that then other disciples can grow into. So this is a really good benefit to doing this. Another thing is it lets you get to know more church members. As you're talking to other people and opening up to them, you're going to get to know them better, and you're going to build those relationships within the congregation. Another benefit is that it builds confidence in being more vulnerable with other disciples. So as you open up to one person and they say, okay, I've dealt with that too. I've struggled with that too. Or, I totally understand where you're coming from. Let's work on it together. As those opportunities present themselves, you're going to grow in your confidence level. You're going to grow in your confidence in your ability to open up and to be vulnerable and to tear down those walls with other disciples. It's sort of like evangelism. Before we do it, we're terrified to do it. We're terrified that they're going to yell at us. We're terrified we're going to be harassed because we even mentioned Jesus. And so we're terrified to even do it. But after we take that first step and we realize, that wasn't so bad. They didn't exactly say yes, but they didn't say no either. And they didn't jump down my throat, and they didn't lash out at me or reject me or anything like that. As those things happen, and as you realize, okay, maybe it's not so hard. Maybe I can do this more often. The same thing applies to opening up and being vulnerable with each other. The more that we do it, the easier it's going to become. So that's a benefit too. And then the last benefit that I had written down is that it gives encouragement to you to deal with the struggle that you're facing. So whatever situation it is that you ask for prayers for, it's going to give you encouragement and confidence to deal with that going forward. And you're going to remember, wait a minute, I've got somebody praying for me about this specific thing. I can do it. So it's going to give you that confidence. And if they open up to you and you pray for them as well, it goes both ways. So you're building up that confidence. So that was the first question. What would be the benefits to both people if only we could get over our fear and open up in this way? Now let's talk about the second question that we discussed in our mission training in regard to this challenge. And it is this. If we were doing this challenge half-heartedly, describe the people we would choose to reach out to. But who should we be reaching out to? Okay, so this question has two parts. If we're doing this half-heartedly, who would we be reaching out to? Well, it's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. We'd be reaching out to friends. We'd be reaching out to our spouse. We'd be reaching out to the people that we already talk to every week. We'd be reaching out to the people who are just like us, or the people we know that are not going to push us to grow. Let's stop there for just a minute. We'd be reaching out to the people that we know are not going to push us to grow because they are living a more worldly lifestyle than we are. And they're not going to push you to grow because they don't necessarily want you to grow because it makes them look worse. So people who are living a more worldly lifestyle than you are not going to push you to grow. And in fact, they're just going to be, they're going to say, okay, well, everybody has weaknesses, and, just go with it. Don't even bother trying to overcome it. Don't even bother trying to grow because they don't want to grow. So they're not going to push you to grow if they don't want to grow themselves. So if we're doing this half-heartedly, we're going to be picking out those types of people that we know are not really going to care or not really going to push us to grow. Also, the people, like I said, our friends, our spouse, the people we talk to every single week. In other words, the people in our comfort zone. If we're doing this half-heartedly, those are the people that we're going to be reaching out to. The people in our comfort zone that are not going to challenge us in any way. It's not going to challenge us to reach out to them because we talk to them all the time and they already know us very well. And it's not going to challenge us spiritually because we know they're not going to challenge us to grow or to move outside of our comfort zone. So if we're doing this challenge half-heartedly, those are the people that you are going to be reaching out to. And you can, in your mind right now, you can make a list of those people that, if you were doing this half-heartedly, you would reach out to them. Those people in your circle that are in your comfort zone. or the people that you know would not challenge you. You can make a list of that right now. You don't necessarily have to, because that's not necessarily productive to the discussion. But now we're going to be talking about what should we be doing? What should we be doing in regard to this challenge? This challenge is not about comfort. Let me say that again. This challenge is not about comfort. This challenge is about growth. So everything about this challenge is to try to get each disciple to grow. It's about growing in our faith, in our relationships, in our disciple making. All of these things, it's about growth. So ideally, the people that you're going to want to reach out to are the people who are more spiritually mature, who will challenge you to grow beyond your comfort zone. So the people you're going to be reaching out to, ideally for this challenge, are the people that are more spiritually mature, who are going to challenge you to grow outside of your comfort zone. Also, you might be looking at, ideally, people who you know have overcome in whatever area of struggle that you're going to ask for prayers for. Also, you're going to be looking for the people that you don't usually reach out to, so the people that are not in your inner circle of friends. The people who are not in your comfort zone. Those are the people that you're going to be reaching out to. So, those are the people that, if we're doing it half-heartedly, you reach out to these people. If we're doing it for the purpose of spiritual growth, it'll be these people. And, you can already put together a list in your mind of who those people probably are. So, let's look at the third question that was asked in the mission training last Sunday. List a few concrete examples of how we could actually reach out to someone for this challenge. So the challenge is, remember to confess your weaknesses to someone and then ask for prayers in regard to that weakness. How could we practically do that? What are some concrete examples? Well, you've always got text message, right? You've got phone calls, a little more personal. You've got a letter, which, could be very encouraging for somebody to get a handwritten letter in the mail. You've got email, which is probably not super productive in that regard. You've got a social media message, so like maybe a Facebook Messenger message to somebody. You've also got the opportunity to do it in person at the worship assembly, when you see them before or after worship service or Bible class. You talk to them in person. And then you've got probably the most ideal, which is in person but outside of the worship assembly. So you have them over into your home. You take them out to eat. You go out and do something together. You go out and you spend time together outside of the worship assembly, and then you bring this up in discussion naturally in those moments. That one is obviously going to be the most effective when it comes to this challenge, and it will challenge us to go outside of our comfort zone the most, which is why most of you will not pick that option, because it will go outside of your comfort zone. So, because we're behind a screen and you can't yell at me right now, I'm just going to go ahead and say what I know to be true, just based off of common sense and experience and wisdom, is that the majority of you, 75% or more, are going to choose the absolute easiest option to this, which is a text or a Facebook message. I just know from common sense, as you do too, that the majority of the people who are trying to complete this challenge are going to pick that. And I would say that is great, that you are at least trying to complete the challenge, that you want to complete the challenge, and that you are reaching out to somebody that you don't normally talk to And maybe this is the starting point for you. That is wonderful, and I commend you for doing that. But if you're doing that just because it's in your comfort zone, like if all of this just completely scares you to death, and sending a text message is going outside of your comfort zone, great. Good for you. I am proud of you. You are going to grow, and this is great spiritually for you. But here's the thing. This challenge is all about growth. If sending a text or a Facebook message is already in your comfort zone, you're already doing that anyway, then here's my question. If this challenge is all about growth and you're just doing that, what you always do, or doing what's already inside your comfort zone, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to grow from this challenge. You'll just be checking a box. You'll just be dropping a pom-pom ball in a jar and saying, I did it. Good. I'm doing the mission of the church. The mission of the church is really fulfilled in discomfort. The mission of the church is fulfilled in discomfort. You have to go outside of your comfort zone in order to grow and in order to truly accomplish the mission of the church. So, what I would recommend for you, if sending a text or a social media message is already inside your comfort zone, then I would challenge you to go a little bit further, to go outside of your comfort zone, and to go to the next level. Maybe send a handwritten letter. Maybe talk to them at assembly. And if you're really ambitious, and I hope that you are, invite them out to eat or invite them over into your home and then have this discussion with them. That would obviously be the ideal. All right, enough preaching. That's all out of the way. So now we're going to get to the actual, we're going to wrap it up now. We're going to get to the actual concrete steps of what you have to do in order to make this challenge happen. So what are your next steps? There are 6 of them. 6 concrete steps. What I want you to do here is, after I talk about each step, I want you to pause the video and I want you to literally do that step right here and now, and then resume the video and come back and watch the next step. So we're going to do this. We're going to pause after each one, and we're literally going to go and do that step right here and right now. Because, we can do all of this talking, we can do all this planning about here's what we're going to do in the future. I'll get to it at some point, but we actually have to get to it. We have to do it. So, here's your checklist to get this challenge done. 6 things. Number 1 is ask God to lead you through this process. So, you're going to ask for wisdom in making the next decisions with the following steps. You need to go to God in prayer right now, and you need to ask Him for wisdom in making the right decisions with the upcoming steps. You need to ask for boldness to go outside of your comfort zone. You need to ask that the other person in this whole process may be edified, the person that you're going to reach out to, that person may be edified and built up through this entire process. You also need to ask that God may be glorified in this process. And you need to ask for the conviction to actually go out and do this challenge. So, I want you to stop the video and pray, and I want you to pray about these things one more time. Wisdom in making the right decisions. Boldness in going outside of your comfort zone. Edification for the other person. Glorification for God. And conviction on your part to do it. So pause the video right here and say that prayer before coming back for step number 2. Did you pause the video? I'll wait if you didn't. Okay, that's probably enough time. All right, we're going to move on to step number 2. So now that you've got that prayer out of the way, you've invited God into the process. God is in this process with you. And He will be helping you. The Holy Spirit will be working with you as you go through these following steps. So here's step number 2. Choose what you are going to ask for prayers about. So identify that weakness that you're going to ask the other person for prayers about. Here's some guidelines of what it should be. Number 1, it needs to be something spiritual. It needs to be a spiritual weakness. Because the whole point of all of this is to grow in our disciple making, to grow in discipleship. We're not talking about, the weakness that you have at playing video games. You're not great at video games, or that, you're a bit slow when it comes to running a race. We're not talking about normal everyday weaknesses. We're not talking about your weaknesses in your job at work. Okay? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about your spiritual weaknesses. So, whatever the struggle is that you're going to open up to about somebody, it needs to be something that impacts your spirituality. Here's another guideline related to the first one. What you decide to ask for prayers about needs to be something that will, when the prayer is answered, that when you get better at whatever this weakness is, that it will cause you to go outside of your comfort zone. So, for example, my weakness is that I'm poor and I don't have enough money. That's not what I'm talking about, because obviously if you were to get more money, that would not cause you to go outside of your comfort zone. It would further entrench you into a comfort zone. That is the opposite of what we want. We're talking here about opening up to weaknesses that, to overcome those weaknesses, will by necessity cause you to grow outside of your comfort zone. Okay? That's the kind of weakness that we're talking about. Something that, when you're challenged on it, it will cause you to grow outside of your comfort zone. The next thing to consider, the third thing to consider when it comes to what it is that you're going to ask for prayers about, is that it should be the most pressing thing that is standing in the way of you being an active disciple of Jesus. So the struggle that you open up to somebody else about should be either adjacent to or directly should be the most pressing thing that is standing in the way of you being a more active disciple of Jesus. So in your life, what is the most pressing thing that's standing between you and being a disciple who makes other disciples? What is that? That should be what you ask help with. That is what you should confess to the other person. That's what you should ask for prayers about. So, I want you to pause the video right here and decide, using those criteria, decide what it is that you are going to ask for prayers about to the other person. Pause the video and come up with that now. All right, now that step number 2 is complete, and now that you know what it is that you're going to ask about, remember you asked for wisdom. That was step number 1, talking to God to guide you through this process. Number 2, now you have your weakness. You have the thing that you're going to ask for prayers about. Now let's move on to step number 3. Choose your person. Choose the person that you're going to reach out to. Here's the criteria, the suggested criteria. Of course, you don't have to take my advice with any of this, but you should. So the first bit of criteria is that it should be somebody who you think will challenge you to grow in the area of the struggle that you selected. So whatever you chose as your struggle, you should pick somebody who you think will challenge you in that area. The second criteria is that it should be someone outside of your circle of friends, outside of your circle of the people that you always talk to. It should be somebody outside of that group. The third criteria, it should be somebody who might have overcome their own challenges in a similar area. So, of course, you may not know that. You may not know what challenges that person has or has not overcome in whatever area you are struggling with. But if you know of somebody that meets these criteria, but that is has also in the past overcome similar struggles, and you know this, then maybe that's the person you should go to. So using these criteria, pick who it is. Think of the people in the congregation. Think of somebody that you want to reach out to, somebody that's outside of your circle of friends, somebody that will challenge you, somebody that maybe has overcome similar struggles. Think of that person. Pick that one person. So pause the video here and pick that one person. All right. So here's what we've done so far. We've asked God to guide us in this process. That was step number 1. Step number 2 is we have picked what it is that we're going to ask for prayers about, what our weakness is. And then step number 3, we've picked our person. Now we have the person in mind that we're going to reach out to. We know who that person is. We are really on a roll. We're ready to get this ball rolling. We're ready to get going with this challenge. So here is step number 4. Are you ready? Pick how you want to reach out to that person. So here's the criteria of which method you should pick. Number 1, a method that will edify them. So pick something that will uplift them as much as it uplifts you. So consider that person and what it is that will encourage that person the most. So think about that. The second criteria to think about with this is choose the method that will challenge you the most, or at least to the next level outside of your comfort zone. Pick a method that will challenge you to move outside of your comfort zone. If you're comfortable sending a text, if you're comfortable sending a Facebook message, then go a little bit higher and pick the next one that will cause you to grow outside of your comfort zone. So pause the video right here and pick. You should be writing all these down. Pick who it is. Pick how you want to reach out to the person that you've chosen. All right, pause the video now and decide. All right. So we're ready for the next step, which is step number 5. Decide what you are going to say. Decide what you are going to say. So you should jot down some bullet points of the things that you want to discuss. So to keep in mind with this step here, you should lead up to what you want to talk about. Don't just jump in there. You should lead up to it, and you should not make it all about you. Okay? You should talk to them. You should ask them how their life is going. You should ask them about their family, ask them about their job or about school or about, these types of things. Ask about them and lead up to moving into this so that it's not just all about you. Also, think about what you want to say as encouraging them. Putting in there things that you notice about them. The things that you appreciate about them. The things that have impressed you about them. The reason that you picked them to reach out to. So encourage them in this. So lead up to it. Don't just jump right in there. Don't make it all about you, but ask about them and their life as well. And number 3, encourage them in all of this, in what you say. So go ahead and write down a few bullet points that will help you, at least in your mind, to just sort of structure the types of things that you want to talk about and you want to say to this person. So decide what you're going to say. Pause the video right now and jot down some bullet points. I'll wait. All right, so we're ready for step number 6, and this is the last one. Decide when you are going to do this and hold yourself to it. So set a time and a date that you will have this challenge completed by. Make it sometime within the next 2 weeks from now. Don't push it too far out, because this isn't something that you really need to sit around on and plan for a long time. This is something you can do right now. So sit down right here and now and pick a time and a date that you are going to have this done by. And then hold yourself to that. Make a reminder on your phone. Put a sticky note in your office or on your bedroom door or your bathroom mirror, or put a reminder somewhere that will remind you you have committed to doing this challenge. So pick the time and the date, make a reminder for yourself. Pause the video and do that right now. All right, so that was all 6 of the steps. Hopefully you have completed all 6 of those steps to prepare for this. Number 1, ask God to lead you through this process. So pray to God and ask Him to be with you. Step number 2, choose who it is that you're going. Choose what you're going to ask for prayers for, or what choose what your weakness is going to be that you're going to reveal to someone. 3, pick the person that you're going to reveal it to. 4, pick how you want to reach out to them. 5, decide what you're going to say. And 6, decide when you're going to do it and hold yourself to it. So that is everything. You are now prepared to actually accomplish this challenge, to go and do it. So here's a couple of reminders before we end the video. Number 1, after you complete the challenge, drop a pom-pom ball into the equip jar on the Mission Control Center. Do you remember the Mission Control Center in the lobby of the church building? There's that little bowl with the pom-pom balls in it. You pick one up and you drop it into the jar associated with whatever challenge that you completed. So when you complete the equip mission, drop a pom-pom ball in that jar to show that somebody completed that challenge, because we'll be keeping track of how many people completed each challenge. So that is the first reminder. Second reminder is watch next Sunday's training video as well. I know this is long and I know this is really challenging and it's getting us to go outside of our comfort zone. I recognize that. We understand that. That's the whole point of this. And this is going to be a weekly thing. But this is if we engage in these training sessions and we actually do these things, it will cause us to grow. The church will grow and we will grow closer together. Our discipleship will explode. We will grow if we only do these things. So commit to watching next Sunday's training video as well and completing that challenge. And make plans to be at the next mission training, which is going to be on September 4th at 6 p.m. in the fellowship hall of the Holly Hill Church of Christ church building. So make sure to be there September 4th at 6 p.m. That's the first Sunday in September. And it'll be in the evening at 6 p.m. So make sure you're there. So that's all for this training video. I know this is long, but thanks for watching. Thank you for sticking around, and thank you for committing to doing these 6 steps and then going and doing the mission. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.